seriously? A wind tugs on Elder Mo's beard and his face looks so red that it might explode at any moment. Not jotting down notes to decipher its content and simply flipping the books randomly. Tell me, who reads the way you do? Must reading involve jotting down notes to decipher its contents? Only now does Zhang Xuan understand why the other party is so mad. He is at a loss to respond. In his previous life, he was a librarian and his job scope was similar to that of Elder Mo's. However, back then, as long as one holds a borrowing pass, he would be able to enter the premises and no one would bother, whether he is eating or drinking inside. As long as one doesn't kill someone or set the place on fire, he is basically free to do as he pleases. Initially, he thought that Elder No was making things difficult for him, due to his previous self's astounding results at the teacher qualification examination. After such a farce, the reason ends up to be just this. These books are obtained through the relentless efforts of the Academy's predecessor and every single one of them is the product of their blood, sweat and tears. If you are not here to study, then don't touch them. Flipping through them the way you do, what can you be doing other than creating trouble? Elder Mo flings his hands in anger. Fine, if you insist that I'm creating trouble, then just take it to be so. Zhang Xuan wants to explain but after thinking it through for a moment, he shakes his head and decides otherwise. The matter with the Library of Heaven's Path must not be revealed. This also means that he would be unable to explain his actions of flipping through those books frenziedly. Since he won't be here in the future anyway, there is no need for him to clarify it. Besides, his reputation is already as bad as it is, it doesn't matter whether it is sullied further or not. At least you're willing to admit to it. Now, scram. Upon his admittance, intense loath can be seen in Elder Mo's eyes. He waves his hands, gesturing him to leave. I'll be taking my leave. Just as he is about to leave, a pleasant aroma surges into his surroundings and a figure appears before him. Blocking his path, Shen Bairu says, "Wait a minute." "What is it now?" Zhang Xuan looks at her helplessly. "You read your own book while I read mine. Surely I didn't bother you then." HMPH. Normally, when she stops someone else, the other party would be leaping in joy. Yet, this fellow looks at her with an annoyed expression. Shen Bairu frowns. "It isn't about that. Didn't you say that you were reading books in there? After reading for such a long period, surely you would remember some of its contents." "What do you mean?" Not sure what kind of tricks this woman is playing now, Zhang Xuan stares at her doubtfully. "It's simple. I noticed that you read 8 methods of hill refinement. It just happens that there are some parts of it that I am unable to comprehend, so I would like to consult you on it. Surely you won't reject my request?" Shen Bairu asks. Actually, her plan is simple. Isn't this fellow before her putting on an act by flipping through all those books? Thus, if she questions him on the book and he is unable to answer her queries, his lie will be exposed. 8 methods of hill refinement. Zhang Xuan's consciousness jolts as the book appears in his mind. Indeed, he had flipped through this book previously. "If there's anything you are unsure of, feel free to ask and I will answer your queries. However, I have to eat soon, and don't have much time to spare, so do hurry up." You clenching her fists tightly, Shen Bairu almost faints from anger. His tone is as though a frustrated teacher answering the questions of a student seeking clarification. "Firstly, I am a beauty. Secondly, I am a high-level teacher and one of the popular teachers of the school. If I ask you a question, it is obvious that I am testing your standards. Why does it sound like I am learning from you? Everyone has a field of specialty that expertise in, so teachers in the academy often consult one another to learn from each other. However, as a fellow who scored 0 in the teacher qualification examination, what makes you think that you are qualified for me to be consulting you?" Suppressing the rage within her that is on the verge of erupting, Shen Bairu grinds her teeth. Just a moment ago, I read a phrase in the book: if the herbs scatter, it would be difficult for the pill to form. If the herbs agglutinate, a yellow pill will form. I find these words a little bizarre and incomprehensible. Can Zhang Laoshi clarify its meaning for me? When she says the word clarify, her teeth almost shatter from the intense force between them, and the sound of its grinding is clear to hear. As a great beauty, if it isn't to embarrass him, she would never seek guidance from a trash. You still want to ask questions despite that memory of yours. He didn't expect the other party to ask such a question. He purses his lips and replies, the phrase should be: if the herbs agglutinate, it would be difficult for the pill to form. If the herbs scatter, a yellow pill will form. Its meaning is simple. When refining a pill, the moment that the herbal fluid or powder clumps together, it would be impossible to meld their medical properties together. On the other hand, if they are separated and mixed together thoroughly, the pill that would be formed will look like the yellows of an egg. After flipping through all of the books in the compendium pavilion, he is able to retrieve the correct method for the refinement of the pill with just a jolt of his consciousness. She might be able to stump others with such a question, but directing it towards him? What a joke! What's worst is that she even recited the question wrongly. Her standard is too subpar. How? You can't reply it, can you? Ah, what did you say? She thought that the young man would be unable to reply her question. Not even in her dreams would she fathom that Zhang Xuan would be able to answer the question so casually. Unprepared for such a twist, Shen Bairu is dumbfounded, her beautiful eyes almost popping out of their sockets. She intentionally recited the phrase wrongly, so that he would offer the wrong guidance. In her viewpoint, this fellow was just making up a show in the compendium pavilion, not absorbing the slightest bit of knowledge in those books at all. If she were to casually whip out the contents of a book, he would be foreign to them. Thus, she recited it inaccurately, so that he would make a fool of himself. Who knew that he would see through her inaccurate reciting and even offered the most correct answer? How is this possible? Could it be that this fellow has really remembered the entirety of 8 methods of pill refinement just by flipping through it? But that's impossible. He is a fellow who scored 0 in the teacher qualification examination. How could he possibly be knowledgeable in something as unconventional as pill refining? All right, do you have any other questions? Stroking his shriveled stomach, Zhang Xuan hurries her. I still have more. Despite the overwhelming shock, upon seeing the impassive look on his face, Shen Bairu immediately recovers and poses another question. There is another phrase that I don't understand: when refining a metal in flames, never meld them when it is impure. After finishing her words, she smiles coldly as she awaits for the stumped look on the other party. The question she asked previously was on pill refinement, while this one is a dictum on weapon forging. This is a phrase she saw in an ancient book. She was unable to understand the saying ever after analyzing it for a month. In the end, she only managed to clarify it after consulting a master blacksmith. Initially, she only wanted to embarrass the other party, to let him know the price of offending her. Yet, she didn't expect him to be able to explain the meaning of the words in the 8 methods of pill refinement. This provoked the competitive spirit within her, inducing her to come up with a difficult question to leave him speechless. This standing by the side, Elder Mo was surprised when Zhang Xuan was able to answer the first question. Even so, he wasn't particularly shocked. 8 methods of pill refinement is a basic manual that innumerable rookie apothecaries would have to learn, similar to what Hongtian 9 Dan formula is to cultivators. Even if one doesn't learn pill refinement, it isn't peculiar for them to know a thing or two about it. When Shen Bairu asked the second question, he is stunned. That's because even he found it hard to decipher the meaning of these words. When refining a metal in flames, never meld them when it is impure. Just when the two of them thought that he would be incapable of answering, Zhang Xuan shakes his head and looks at Shen Bairu, as though he is looking at an idiot. What is so hard to comprehend about these words? It just means that when forging weapons, one must first refine the respective materials in fire thoroughly, to clear away all impurities. Only then can the weapon be melded together more effectively. May I trouble you to ask some harder questions? This basic knowledge can be grasped easily after reading more books. This Shen Bairu's slim body jolts. She had to consult many different people before she got an answer to this question of hers. Yet, this young man managed to point out the crux of the dictum instantly. This not just her, even Elder Mo almost faints from astonishment. For Zhang Xuan to answer a question he didn't know the answer to, could it be that he was studying seriously when he was flipping through all those books? Zhang Xuan Laoshi, your answer seems to be incorrect though. I remember that there is an explanation of it on discussions of miscellaneous disputes, which is different from what you claim. It states that if one wants to add metal material to a pill, one would have to refine it first, otherwise it would not coagulate as one. In a state of disbelief, Elder Mo speaks up. You remembered it wrongly, there isn't such a phrase in discussions of miscellaneous disputes, neither is there anything of that sort written in it. The one you read must be discussion of miscellaneous theories written by Senior Liu Z. There is a phrase similar to it in there, but what that is written is when refining a metal along with a pill, never mix them when it is impure, and not refining a metal in flames. Zhang Xuan waves his hand majestically. He isn't aware that the both of them are testing him. He truly thought that the both of them couldn't remember the contents clearly, and thus, he casually continues, "Oh, this book is at the corner of the 9th row in the compendium pavilion. The words that you just said are recorded on the 49th page. As for the question Shen Laoshi just asked, if you hold doubts about my explanation, you can browse through 3 Arts of Firecrafting left behind by Senior Dooku. It is by the corner of the 15th bookshelf and the explanation of it is written on the 24th page. Let me take a look." Shen Bairu looks at him with doubtful eyes. She hurriedly rushes back into the compendium pavilion and in a short moment, she comes back with 2 books in her hand, Discussion of Miscellaneous Theories and 3 Arts of Firecrafting. Flipping to the page that the latter said, she staggers and almost passes out on the spot. To think that it would be identical to what Zhang Xuan said, there is not even a single discrepancy. Not only did he remember the contents of the book, he could even point out which book it came from, its location and even the page number. Is this for real? Art of Tranquil Water. Grabbing hold of the book from Shen Bairu, Elder Mo takes a glance at it and his entire body trembles. This should be impossible. Alright, is there still anything you are unsure of that you would like to consult? If not, I'll be leaving. Zhang Xuan looks at them with puzzlement reflecting on his face. Are these 2 fellows sick? If they wanted to consult him, they should have come up with some harder questions. Yet, they chose to ask those that have been answered within the books. He didn't even have to churn his brain to derive out an answer for them. How boring. To think that one of them is a librarian and an expert, while the other one is a reputable and popular teacher pue. To be unable to match up to a transcender like me, they are truly lacking in knowledge. If you don't mind, I have another question that has been plaguing me. How would you interpret circulating a cycle of qi, reflecting the sight of 10,000 creations? Suppressing the disbelief in his mind, Elder Mo continues to ask. Another elder has raised this question with him a few days ago. After being stumped by it, he has been scavenging the compendium pavilion to seek an answer to it, but to no avail. Thus, he could only depart from the library dispirited. Now that the young lad before him had answered several questions, he couldn't resist bringing it up to him. You don't even know that? Zhang Xuan looks at him as though he is looking at an idiot. That is the utmost basics of cultivation, all right. It refers to the phenomenon where while one's ki is circulating through one's body in a complete cycle, one's mind would seem to be in a state of wandering around the entire world, as they comprehend the rules behind creationism. These words are recorded in Senior by Ming's Theories of Blood and Ki. The book is on the 27th shelf and the explanation is on the 69th page. Circulating a cycle of ki, reflecting the sight of 10,000 creations, this is one of the few flawless teachings that are in the Fighter One Dan cultivation technique manuals, thus it left quite an impression with Zhang Xuan. It happens that a predecessor of Hongtian Academy had once deciphered it, so he paid additional notice to it. Why would an elder, who is the sentinel of the compendium library, need to direct such an easy question towards him? Elder Mo didn't reply to his words immediately and instead, just like Shen Bairu, walks into the compendium pavilion hurriedly. A short moment later, he finds the book titled Theories of Blood and Ki, and flips it over to the 69th page. His body staggers. It is exactly as he described. A few days ago, that elder flipped through many different secret manuals, but couldn't find an answer to his question. Never in his dreams would he have imagined that it would be recorded in an obscure book. Such an obscure book to think that he would have read it, to the extent of even remembering the pages? Elder Mo feels the world spinning around him and everything seems so ludicrous to him in this instant. If it isn't for his consideration for his image, he might be tugging on the ends of his hair at this moment. A moment ago, he accused the other party of causing trouble in the library. In the end, not only is he reading books properly, he even memorized the contents contained within it. He feels a fiery sting on his face and fervently wishes for a burrow to appear, so that he could hide in it. Is he really the same teacher who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination? If Zhang Xuan could be the last with such a level of knowledge, doesn't this mean that he isn't even qualified to get 0 marks? Alright. In the future, read more books. The answers to the questions that you have posed are all recorded in them. Seeing their stunned expressions, Zhang Xuan lectures them with a deep tone. Then, he shakes his head and says, "If there is nothing else, I'll be leaving." After saying those words, he lifts his legs to walk away. He is simply way too hungry. If he doesn't get food anytime soon, he might really faint from starvation. Zhang Xuan Laoshi, wait for me. Only now does Shen Bairu recover from her shock and she swiftly catches up with Zhang Xuan. What else do you want? Zhang Xuan says in a slightly annoyed tone. Is this woman sick or something? I had already clarified your queries for you. Are you done yet? Can't you see that I am hungry and would like to eat? I have yet to eat as well. Do you want to share a meal with me? Shen Bairu grits her teeth. She is the Aphrodite of the academy. Many men had asked her out for a meal, only to be rejected by her. She had not even accepted a single one of the innumerable meal dates from Shang Bin. The shock that this young man generated in her today made her curious about him, thus she decided to ask him out so as to make use of the opportunity to see what is it that caused the changes in him. You want me to treat you? Zhang Xuan looks at her with a bizarre expression. What are you thinking of? If you want to eat, use your own money. How can one's skin be so thick? You had questions for me, so I answered them for you. You still expect me to treat you after that? How can you be so shameless? In his previous life, he had researched numerous action films, but even so, he is a true shut-in. He had never truly come in contact with the opposite gender before, so how could he understand the thoughts of a lady? You seeing the gaze of the young man and hearing his words, Shen Bairu almost shoots out a mouthful of blood and faints. I am a beautiful lady, all right. Beautiful ladies have special privileges. So many people had invited me out, and I turned down every single one of them. Yet, when I ask you out, you look at me as though I am a monster. Shameless. Shameless your head. Is there anyone in the world Who would term a beautiful lady as such? The lady is on the verge of going berserk. Fine, I'll treat you, okay? I'll treat you. Grinding her silver teeth together, Shen Bairu spits out these words. You treat me? Zhang Xuan pauses for a moment. Due to his previous self being the worst teacher in the academy, his income is nearly negligible. As such, it isn't a bad thing to have someone treat him. Thus, he nods his head, it's fine with me, but I want a luxurious meal. I won't eat just any ordinary manis and fried pancakes. Mantu bun basically, he means he won't just eat street food from vendors by the street. Shen Bairu goes berserk again. Mantu and fried pancakes? The heck with it. Let's go. She doesn't want to say anything anymore. She's afraid that if she continues talking to him, she would die from anger. The Library of Heaven's path allows him to see through the flaws of all skills and everyone's Mingmen. However, it is unable to peer into the heart of a lady. Zhang Xuan is oblivious to the fact that he had made Hongtian Academy's #1 beauty furious to the point of vomiting blood with just a few simple words of his. Following behind Shen Bairu, Zhang Xuan walks along the pavement towards the entrance of the campus. Although the night scenery at Hongtian Academy isn't as radiant as the school in his previous life, it is still quite an exquisite sight under the illumination of the moon. Shrouded by spirit energy, the atmosphere seems exceptionally tranquil and peaceful. In his previous life, he was surrounded by hubble bubble and smog could be found everywhere. It was very different from the serenity one could experience here. Zhang Xuan subconsciously immerses himself in this enchanting scenery. Walking in front, Shen Bairu thought that the young man following behind her would intentionally ask some questions to break the awkward silence. However, after the absence of sound for a long period of time, she couldn't resist turning around to take a look. Sneaking a glance, she is taken aback. The young man walks quietly as the moonlight illuminates his figure, the image of it reminiscent of a serene painting. This will of mine too, Dan, heart of tranquil water? Her eyes narrow. Fighters don't just cultivate their zhenqi and physical body. What is even more crucial to them is their mind. The stronger one's mind is, the greater control they have over their cultivation. As a result, one's cultivation can surge even more swiftly, thus allowing them to reach greater heights in the future. That's precisely the reason why experts classified the will of mind into many different levels. Heart of tranquil water is the Dan realm of it. The mind is harder to train than battle techniques. It is said that of the entire academy, only the principal has reached such a level. Even Shen Bairu, who is reputed to possess unparalleled talents, and has reached Fighter 5 Dan pinnacle by the age of 20, second only to the renowned young genius by Wang Ai, is still a long way away from will of mind 2 Dan. Wang Ai Prince Moore is explained below. Initially, she thought that it would be too difficult for a second person to reach such a level, but never in her dreams would she dare to think that the trash teacher in the mouths of others would actually reach such heights. If not for the fact that she witnessed it personally, she would never believe it. How is this possible? That is will of mind 2 Dan. It is a height harder to climb to than Fighter 6 Dan 7 Dan. Could it be that he isn't a trash at all, but he intentionally scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination so as to make use of the insults and derision of others to temper his will? Suddenly, a peculiar thought pops up in her mind. In the past, she didn't have much contact with Zhang Xuan Laoshi, so she isn't really aware of his affairs. Today, through their conversation, she realized that he is not only knowledgeable, he even reached will of mind 2 Dan heart of tranquil water. That is a level many dream about, but never achieved in their lifetime. Looks like his teacher qualification examination results are all feigned. His true goal is to make use of the scorn of others to train his mind, so as to break into the will of mind 2 Dan. She finds it unbelievable that a person with such will of mind would be unable to achieve a pass in the simple teacher qualification examination. HMPH, continue putting on an act. See how I'll expose you. Thinking about how she was duped by this fellow, she grits her silver teeth tightly. This fellow is simply too hateful. She is resolute to look for a chance to expose him before others. Wang is a title granted from the emperor to princes of the country.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never say